Shalom, I'm Brother Rael from Reunited Soul, and in this video I'll discuss the Tanakh, or what some know as the Old Testament Scriptures. You may also hear it called the Hebrew Bible as well. So let us nourish our soul with Scripture, that we may reunite with the Most High, the Elohim of Yisrael. All Scriptures will be read verbatim from the King James Version Bible. Now, let's get right into it. I'd like to begin first by pointing out that certain religions lay claim to both the Tanakh and the Old Testament Scriptures. Lay claim meaning they profess to worship the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the religion of Judaism claimed the Tanakh, and Catholicism and Christianity claim the Old Testament. Both books are similar with differences in which the order the books are arranged, which I'll discuss in a moment. You'll also see differences in the way the names are pronounced. Names such as Moshe instead of Moses, Yosef instead of Joseph, Yisrael instead of Israel, and so forth. One very important thing to keep in mind is that the religions I just mentioned have authorized additional material that supersedes the Tanakh and the Old Testament. Let me repeat that. The religions I just mentioned have authorized additional material that supersedes the Tanakh and the Old Testament. Meaning there's some kind of updated doctrine, belief, or tradition that was added or deviated from what the Most High has already established to better suit their own narratives, to the point that they're no longer recognizable to its origin, which is the worship of the Most High. The religion of Judaism added the Babylonian Talmud to their belief system. The Talmud is a very influential book of instructions written by rabbis that govern daily living for the Jewish community. It dictates their dealings with the Gentiles. The Talmudic teachings are controversial, and many Gentiles would find it very offensive if they were knowledgeable of its contents. So again, this Talmud was added by man to what the Most High has already established through his laws, statutes, and commandments. Now, Catholicism and Christianity have their New Testament scriptures, which speak of a new covenant that replaces the old covenant of the Old Testament. Can you see a pattern here? Again, here we have something additional to what the Most High had already established. The play on words itself speaks volumes of their true intent. Take the word new, for example. For many people, new is more desirable than old. New gives the insinuation of better or upgraded. The word old, to many, can be thought of as outdated, obsolete, or in need of replacement. So with the adoption of the New Testament, the Tanakh is, I guess for a lack of a better word, renamed the Old Testament. And as you can very well see, the name produced its desired effect. So there you have it, two clear examples of how the writings of man superseded the word of the Most High. At least those who practice Judaism know that the Talmud was written by rabbis. And although what thus saith the Most High is not in New Testament scriptures, you have a very hard time trying to convince New Testament believers of that simple fact. Now, with that being said, let's get right into the Tanakh. The Tanakh consists of a total of 24 books. These books are further divided into three parts. Those three parts are the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. The word Tanakh is actually an acronym that derives from those three parts. The three parts are further categorized as the teachings, the prophets, and the writings. Most of you may be familiar with the first part of the Tanakh, which is the Torah, also known as the 5 books of Moses, which consists of the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Torah is essential in understanding the Most High, what He has done for His people, and what He requires of them. It covers the creation of heaven and earth all the way to the life of Moses. Most importantly, it covers the laws, the benefits of obeying them, and the consequences of disobeying them. The Nevi'im is the second part of the Tanakh, which consists of 8 books and covers the prophets. The Nevi'im is further divided into 2 groups, the former prophets and the latter prophets. The former prophets consist of the books of Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st and 2nd Kings. Then there are the latter prophets, which consist of the books of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Then followed by the 12 minor prophets, which are Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. The Ketuvim is the third and final part of the Tanakh, which consists of 11 books and covers the writings. The Ketuvim is further divided into 4 sections, which are poetical books, scrolls, prophecy, and history. The poetical section consists of the books of Psalms, Proverbs, and Job. The scrolls consist of the books of the Song of Solomon, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, and Esther. The prophecy section consists of just 1 book, the book of Daniel. And the fourth and last is the history section, which consists of the books of Ezra, Nehemiah, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So, there you have it, a brief breakdown of the Tanakh. On my videos, I read verbatim from the King James Version Bible, because this is what our people are accustomed to. I don't want our people to think that I'm bringing something that's outside of what they should be learning while in church. I'm sharing scriptures that our ancestors understood but was tragically lost during the transatlantic slave trade. We, as a people, cannot minimize what was done to our ancestors by our current oppressors' ancestors. Our oppressor doesn't mind the history of slavery because, in their mind, that represents their superiority. However, what they don't like to hear about is the pure wickedness and brutality that was sowed at the hands of their people. We must also understand that free labor wasn't the main objective. Unbeknown to them, they were fulfilling prophecy according to Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, and I read, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. Also in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64, and I read, And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." And Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, and I read, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondman and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you." So, there was a reason why our oppressors didn't want our ancestors to read as slaves. There was a reason why they separated families by selling them off individually to who knows where. Now you have a people that's not only illiterate, but fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters were separated and sold to ensure vital knowledge of their heritage was not passed on verbally. It was a very brutal system of slavery and mind control. By the time slavery was abolished, our ancestors' memory of who they were was wiped clean like a hard drive. Our people were like children's putty in the hands of an aggressive, dishonest, and violent oppressor who suffered hell on earth at their hands. And our ancestors wanted a way out of this hellhole they were in, and salvation, forgiveness, with the promise of heaven, I'm certain sounded like a pretty good deal right about then. No disrespect or dishonor to our ancestors, but their minds were probably ripe for the taking. So that same aggressive, dishonest, and violent oppressor downloaded that New Testament doctrine onto our people's clean hard drive. Okay, let's pause right here for a moment. I want to give those die-hard New Testament believers time to calm down so they can hear me. I'm probably being called everything except a child of the Most High right now. Although all my discussions are about focusing on what thus said the Most High. However, I know most of our people will cling to something other than the Most High. That's why He'll only gather a remnant. Okay, let's wait a few more seconds for those still reciting the story of Jesus. You know, when I started Reunited Soul, I told myself that this wouldn't be a platform to condemn my people. I still love my people, whether they're awake or asleep. I believe that it's important for them to hear what I'm saying and at least consider what I'm saying. They can't do that if they're still talking. Okay, I believe most of them are about done. So basically, going back to what I was saying, the New Testament doctrine was given to our ancestors by the same aggressive, dishonest, and violent nation of people who enslaved them. Of course it came from them. Where else would it have come from? Do you think angels descended from heaven and handed our ancestors the New Testament scriptures? It was given to our ancestors by the very same people who brutally enslaved them. And at their lowest, weakest, and most vulnerable point of their entire existence. Here we are today, with many of our people who will defend the New Testament doctrine to their last breath. You don't have to agree with the rationale of prophecy, but what we must acknowledge is that when prophecy is fulfilled, the world will witness it. It's in plain sight. Take those three scriptures I just discussed. Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64, and Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. This happened on such a massive scale that involved nations of people. Now that's kind of hard to deny it happened. So now I'll end with this thought. And let's not confuse the New Covenant with the New Testament. The New Covenant is explained in Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 31 through 34. If that has already occurred, there'd be no more need to teach the Most High's people about Him, for they would all know. All meaning worldwide. You see how the Most High operates? So if the New Testament doctrine were true, and the Messiah was the only means of salvation, let me repeat that. The only means of salvation for the Most High's people, would it have occurred on such a small scale, in a small location, with a small group of witnesses? Small in comparison to worldwide. Please understand that this New Testament doctrine prophecy that was supposed to happen almost 2,000 years ago would have had to endure the test of time to reach the Most High's people who are alive today and beyond for their salvation. We're talking salvation. What would be more important than that for our people? And all we have to account for that truth is the testimony of the authors of the New Testament. Try to wrap your mind around that rationale. Study the Tanakh or the Old Testament and you'll know the Most High Yah, the Elohim of Yahzrael. Study the New Testament and you'll know Jesus and very little about the Most High. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. Our ancestors had the opportunity to hear the Most High's voice on the regular, but they chose not to, according to Exodus chapter 20, verses 18 through 23, and I read, "And all the people saw the thunderings, and the lightnings, and the noise of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near into the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. And our ancestors also had the opportunity for the Most High to reign over them as king, but instead chose a man king, according to 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 4 through 7. And I read, Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel, when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people, and all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. Our ancestors have a proven track record of placing something between them and the Most High. You'll also know that's not the Most High's will for his people. If you study the Tanakh or Old Testament scriptures, you will clearly see the erroneous ways of our ancestors time and time again. And you can't help but notice that his people are doing the same thing today with the New Testament doctrine. Jesus stands between them and the Most High. There's nothing new under the sun. With that being said, always keep your trust in the Most High. Love him with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. See to it that your household is in line with the word of the Most High as best you can. I thank you for taking the time to watch. Again, I am Rael, your reunited soul brother. And with that, I say to you, Shalom.